Hi, welcome back. I'm Karen here with Kelly, and we are answering your grief questions. So, this is part two of a series that we're doing about grief resources. They come in many forms. Our first video was about books, books both for adults and for children. And so, we're moving into a different realm today. I know a lot of people that I work with and talk to are listening to podcasts and finding them incredibly helpful. I'm a podcast listener myself on all kinds of different topics, so it can be a good way to reach a person. You can do it in your car, you can do it while you're making dinner, and it's something that you can do in little spurts, I think, too. So Kelly, the question is, what is a good podcast? What would you recommend for people who are grieving?
Yeah, so I'm not a big podcast listener, to be but I've been on several podcasts, and actually, some of these that I listed are ones that I've been on. Path 11, one of our co-authors from the Grief Experience, April Hanna, that is her podcast, and I believe she has like 450 episodes at this point, and I think I'm on 3 or 4 of them. So, you can see me on there. She also interviewed several of the other Grief Experience authors, so that's a fun place. She really looks into more of the metaphysical side of things and exploring what really happens when somebody dies. So they are really interesting topics, and I'd encourage you to check it out. A
Yeah.
couple others that I have listened to is All There Is with Anderson Cooper. I really have enjoyed the episodes that I've listened to. People come in talking about that podcast probably more than any other podcast
Same here.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good. So I also put in a couple of different ones for different types of grief, right? So the Surviving Siblings podcast, obviously for sibling loss. The Place of Yes is actually a grieving mom. She's actually local to my region in upstate New York, the capital region. She does that podcast, and she's had a lot of some local people on there and shares about her experience being a bereaved mother.
Mm.
So these are, I think it's a great opportunity to be able to listen to other people's stories and to know that you're not alone in your grief.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. As you said, Anderson Cooper one is one that I get quoted back to the
Mhm.
most. I know Andrew Garfield was on a recent episode, and people just could not say enough, about that conversation. One of the ones that I know that I had out of here is the Mindfulness and Grief podcast. That's author Heather Stang. And she's someone that I've actually had an opportunity to work very closely with. And she just has a wonderful approach, a mindfulness approach, with, I think, we're always kind of looking for those tools, and she takes like the mindfulness approach, and I just find it incredibly helpful. In fact, it was really interesting. I had her book and used her book for a long time, and then I got to meet her after, and it was like, oh my gosh, like meeting like a celebrity. I'm like, I've been using your book forever. So she's got a podcast as well, and again, I just, there's certain people you just like their style, and so you have to find what works for you. You said you don't listen to podcasts as much. For me, I think it's about the voice sometimes. I mean that, there's things that, you just find the rhythm. So the topic, of course, is important, but you may find that there's some that are just more comforting, than others. So you kind of trial and error it, but there's so much out there for sure.
So we're also going to talk about some social media sites because
Yes.
a lot of people, that's how they connect, right? If you
Mm.
put in a hashtag of grief on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok, you're going to be blown away with how many different pages and groups and that you're going to see. And I follow a lot of like poetry and grief that I'm able to share different places. I'm in a lot of different like therapists and grief groups. And there's just so many. It's a great way to get some information, to also learn about some events. I follow Karyn on all of her social media sites, the Grief in Common, and it's a great way to know about her upcoming events that she has. She does amazing blogs. And so being able to have that information can be really beneficial, again, to just help you feel less alone, help you understand what you're going through is totally normal. I do have a private group, the Grief Empowerment group on Facebook. And then I also have one for if you're school personnel or a therapist with supporting grieving students and children. Facebook group. And that way I can share some resources to be able to help those kiddos that you may be working with.
Mm.
And then just both of us, Karen and I, added some different ones that you can follow. They may be on Facebook, they may be on Instagram, some are on TikTok as well. So just check them out, find ones that you like. And if it's too much, what I always tell people is you can follow these pages or join these groups, but then maybe like, especially like a group, like unfollow. So you're still part of that group, but it doesn't come up all the time because sometimes we want to scroll on social media because we need a break from our grief. And sometimes if we're in too many of these groups and that's all we see in our feed, it can be a little overwhelming and maybe not so helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do want to try to manage it. Like, and the thing is, once you're in the group, then you can go seek out the information anytime you're looking for it. But if you're trying to get online just to be escaped for a little bit, then you don't have to be confronted by it. A lot of these have a community aspect to them where people are sharing their stories. Some are sharing, quotes and things like that about grief. And it's just being mindful. I mean, I think these are all pretty reputable. I mean, I think that's sort of why we vetted this for everybody. And I think that they are, they have quite a few followers and a good history and, people who are behind this that are doing good work. But, anytime, of course, you're on social media, just want to be careful. I know for my own page, I monitor it closely because every once in a while you get somebody on there and you're like, is this person here with the right intentions? So you want to be like kind of checking on that stuff too if someone's trying to interact with you through these pages should you decide to post. But I do think that they can be a nice place for connection too sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, Kelly, well, thank you so much for sharing both the podcast and social media sites with us, and we're going to have a part 3, so stay tuned. We'll be back with that very soon.